Hi everyone. So I wanted to spend this time to talk about why do people stay in consulting. I think a lot of people actually use consulting as like a stepping stone job or career where they use it to go to a different area, not necessarily to stay in consulting. But as Addison is actually still at Accenture, I did wanted to say a little bit more about like why do people stay? Should you stay actually? This video is mostly on consulting, not so much on technology consulting. Oh my god. Sora knocked down the camera! Sora! Sora's right over here. I'll let him stay here for a little bit longer. Maybe that's why he wanted all the attention. He wanted to say hi to everyone. But the very first one I want to mention was for the experience. So even though I feel like the way most people say it is like 2 years in consulting is kind of like 4 years in industry, you get through so much based off of the project work, the pace, the aptitude you need, the level of attention and all that work that you have to do. People do consulting for the experience. Like when I say experience, I'm not talking about just the work experience. They also like it for the travel. They like it for having different work, working with different teams. They like the excitement, the actual experience of consulting. Generally, it means that they don't get bored. They like excitement like that. They generally would want it to be like that for a lot of times. It does depend though, because sometimes when we talk about the experience, we're talking about like we would love to travel the world, but then you go to like I'm not hating this state, but like what if you have a random client trip to Idaho? Not necessarily everyone's first choice as a client trip or in general a trip, but sometimes you're kind of stuck going there every single week. Like Monday through Thursday, you have to leave on a Sunday night and you have to arrive there in time for your Monday morning, go through to Thursday. Then after that, you come home. It's like late Friday, maybe early Friday, hopefully. But you just miss out a lot in like your actual day-to-day experience here in your home state or home city in this case. So, but a lot of people do like the experience of being able to like travel and eat on company's dime and get the experience in terms of the work, the team that you're working on, the projects that you're on. That is ultimately great. Not all the time is it going to be great. This video is already leaning towards why do people leave consulting, but I guess it will be a bit of both. But mostly people stay in consulting because they like that excitement. They like having different work all the time. And in general, like that's actually why they stay. It's like they get bored easily. They want that excitement of being able to do something different. It does depend though, like I mentioned, like if you're on a 10-year project, you don't really get that. But if you're on like a 2-year project or 1-year project, you can go really deep into something for a very short period of time. Then you can essentially get the same benefits, get the same compensation without leaving your job. However, I did want to say like there are definitely ways that you can still get that same experience elsewhere without being in consulting. But in general, one thing that a lot of people do it for is for the compensation. So generally, when you go to a consulting firm, you get a very good compensation. A lot of it is also based off of bonuses maybe and possibly overtime. If you work overtime, you get even better pay. In some ways, actually, like overtime is better than salary because you may be working a lot of hours, and of course, overtime gets paid more than salaried sometimes. So, compensation is really key. I think if you were to go to like industry, you generally get paid less than consulting, but if you were in consulting, you get paid pretty well. Actually, while I was like thinking about leaving Accenture, I was looking through all these places. It was pretty hard to find a place that actually paid comparable to Accenture. So compensation's definitely there. And even better, a lot of people actually stay for the compensation even more if you are staying within consulting, but you leave a firm. So like, let's say, for example, you go to consulting, you are going from Accenture to Deloitte or Deloitte to Bain. So each time you're supposed to get a pay bump or a very competitive pay bump. And generally that is the way that you can go up the pay rank. So you can still stay in consulting and get pretty good pay bumps just from staying in consulting. Just because you have a lot of transferable skills that you learn from one consulting firm or from your experience in one consulting firm, moving to the next, literally you're just getting a pay bump for doing the same thing. Maybe the culture, of course, will be a little bit different. Maybe you'll be doing more work. Maybe you'll do less work. But in general, that's why a lot of people like consulting is that you get good pay, you get good experience, unless you don't want either. Then I do see that a lot of people actually end up, oh my God, why the way I made this video is not actually why do people stay in consulting, it's more like why do people leave consulting. But people do end up leaving for stability. But as I mentioned before, there are people that like to stay for that excitement, for the, like, every single day is a different day, or you don't want everything to be just like work. Sometimes you want calls and working with people, or being able to travel. You want to do all of that. But I have definitely seen that people who do stay, they like doing client work, they like working with people, but they also do like to have all the work that you would do with consulting, because technically you can do everything that we just mentioned in a company. So as I actually am a client-facing role at Google. My clients do change though, so it's not necessarily entirely different from consulting. My clients do change. So there is excitement there. And this, honestly, this whole idea of this video came out because I was talking to a colleague today about like, if I were to change to this particular role, it would be a little bit more boring. And I was like, I like the work that we're doing now because it's more exciting. There's more work to do. And then the guy that I was talking to was like, I like boring. I like stability. I'm like, that's a very interesting perspective, because I think he would be the type to leave consulting. Someone like me who was younger than him, has a little bit more energy than him, a little bit more ambition in this case. I was just like, give it to me. I want the excitement. I want the work that comes in that's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more demanding. I like that. I need the challenge. Otherwise I get so bored that I get crazy. So it is definitely not for everyone. I think for a lot of people, they just kind of want to coast. Consulting is definitely not it for you. That if you're someone that gets bored easily, that likes to be challenged, that needs to have a very exciting time, or in general like a very fulfilling time working, then consulting is definitely it. Otherwise, if you're just trying to coast, or you just want stability and you have other priorities such as like your family life or what you have going on in your personal life or work-life balance, then maybe not consulting. You can still get work-life balance through consulting, but that's actually where you get more with technology consulting. So generally what I say about work-life balance for consulting is if you're in like management consulting or strategy consulting, you're definitely traveling a lot more. If anything, you might actually be traveling every single week. Technology consulting, on the other hand, it's more on like, okay, we don't need to be so client-facing. We are client-facing, but we're working on technology solutions. So a lot of it's actually heads-down work. In some kind of ways, it's like staff augmentation. They're hiring you to do something as opposed to hiring you to devise something or come up with something or present something. So technology consulting in that kind of way is actually more heads down work, because you need to do the work. Otherwise, like, how are you going to deliver the solution? The solution is not a deck like management and strategy consulting. It's actually more about the solution that you're implementing or that you're delivering. So that's actually where you could get a little bit best of both worlds. This is kind of what Addison likes, is that he likes a variety of the work that we're doing, or the work that he's doing in this case. But at the same time, he gets to work from home 24/7. He doesn't actually have to go into the office. He doesn't actually have to travel to the client office. He doesn't even have to see their faces, because all their times their video is off. So in this kind of way, he gets the best of both worlds, where he's not just sitting down coding all the time. He's working with clients, he's coordinating with the team, and he's doing technical work as well. So technology consulting is definitely something that if you wanted that in between of doing client work, but at the same time having it to be different and exciting and a little bit flexible, then maybe that would be it for you. Do it in technology consulting. The one caveat is that you need some kind of technical skills. You need some kind of technical know-how to be able to do something like that. But a lot of times, honestly, there's a lot of people going into technology consulting just strictly because there's a lot of people doing technology nowadays. So if you're in a consulting firm, there's probably resources for that, for you to do that. So definitely consider that. The one thing that I did want to say is, like, for those who are looking for what you would want in consulting, which is the compensation, the experience, having to work with different people, different projects, different clients, there are definitely roles out there in the industry that are just as lucrative. Namely, like, for example, my role at Google. So I'm not saying specifically like Google has it, but if you look for sales engineers, solutions architects, solutions consultants, or anyone that's like a client-facing work, you'll get that, okay? Especially in tech, you'll get the compensation. You get the experience of being in tech, which generally is better work-life balance. Like, you're not always going to be working with the client all the time. Like, you're not going to be at the client site. You're actually going to be more in your tech company facing the client as opposed to being at the client, if that makes sense. Like, you won't be traveling as much. You will definitely be traveling. You just won't be traveling as much. So if you think about it that way, technology consulting might also be worth looking into at a tech company. So in this case, it's more of like solutions or client-facing work at a client at a tech company, which you could definitely get. It doesn't have to be technology consulting. So definitely look into those because most do have that kind of role. Some are cases and some are project work. So definitely look into those though, because I think either or, it's definitely something that you can take a look into for many different reasons. If you were in consulting and you've been jumping consulting firm to consulting firm and you're kind of bored and you're like, okay, maybe I need to do something different, maybe expand that net a little bit and look into tech companies, or not even just tech companies. It could be other companies that do, like in this case, like tech project management. So you could do projects within a tech company or projects within a non-tech company but do a tech role. So there's so many different things that you can do to get the same exact thing. You would just get stability in knowing like who your client is. In my case, I don't even know my client sometimes, so I have to always on my feet. Like every quarter there's some new clients that are coming out there, so technically I still get the same thrill of being in consulting without being in a consulting firm. So definitely don't only look at consulting firms. I know if you're new, you're like, oh my God, now I have to look at more places. Like, can I just like look at a few places and just go from there? You definitely can. So for example, Workday is a software company. They also have consultants. So you can look there as well. You can look at SAP. There's most technology solutions have some kind of team that helps clients, or in this case, customers, actually implement what they're trying to implement. Consulting firms are just like, they're strictly a service company. So all they do is just implement such service or implement whatever solution. So definitely look into it. I guess this video is probably not necessarily why do people stay in consulting, but really it's just those two things. Is really the experience, like the actual work of being in different projects, working with different people, different clients, even different natures of work. If you have the ability to kind of move around and do that as opposed to doing the same kind of work but for different clients. The other one is compensation. General compensation is pretty competitive when it comes to consulting. And I mean, like, it is competitive for big consulting firms. Smaller consulting firms, depending on the group. If you go for a small consulting firm, and when I say that, you can go for like boutique consulting firms, if they are very technical and very good at what they do because they're really specialized in whatever they're doing, it could be very competitive in terms of pricing, or it could be low because if you're a smaller consulting firm, this generally means you might have fewer clients, and generally this means that you are constantly going to have to fight on price. So that's what I would say is like, it's a hit or a miss for a smaller boutique company. Because number one, they're just less funded. They just have fewer clients. But number two, on the other hand, is that because they're smaller, they actually would be more specialized in some ways and might be attracting for specific, very niche clients. And because of that, they're positioned better for their clients and they might actually be able to charge more. Or the skill that they're really good at is very specific and very highly coveted. That could be a highly paid skill. So you take it for what I say, do whatever you want. But what I say is like, a lot of people end up staying in consulting for those two, but you don't have to stay in consulting to do consulting. Okay. So you don't have to stay at a consulting firm to do consulting. You could do that at other companies as well, like tech, or a company doing tech roles, or in general, any kind of company to do consulting. Because essentially consulting is just like you're problem solving and you're essentially consulting someone. So think about it. Let me know what you think below on if you think that you would leave consulting. Personally, for me, I need some kind of impact work. And a lot of times in consulting, I don't feel that close. Yes, you're doing short-term impact with whatever you're implementing or whatever you're consulting on. But ultimately, what you're working on, I feel like I need to see something to the end. Because once the consulting project is over, you're done, you move on to the next client. But I like to see something happen. I like to see it go through, which is kind of why I went through Google, because if I were to work on a consulting project or a project in general, I like to see it happen and I like to see it roll out to something, or vice versa, that like a client has feedback, how do I roll that back up so that way there's an actual impact to whatever product that we're working on. So that's my most fulfilling experience, honestly, and that's why I did consulting at a tech company. Frankly, I did not go to a tech company to do consulting. I just like having variety in my work, variety in the type of work that I do, variety in the people that I work with. That excites me because I like to have that challenge. I like to be able to work with many different pieces. I like to really piece them all together. That's like my superpower, is like piecing things together and then make it work by building really technical solutions. So let me know down below, are you in consulting and thinking about leaving, or you're thinking about consulting and you're staying? Like, are you planning on staying? Because I think a lot of people that do end up staying, they want to go into like management, or they want to be like a director, or they just want to do sales of some sort and like make a lot of money. Honestly, a lot of people end up staying for the money. I don't know that many people that are actually staying for any other reason other than just they got comfortable and they're like, oh, I still feel challenged, so why don't I just stay? All right, let me know down below. See you next time.